Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session in the Edgware United Synagogue Adult Education Program, just 10 days before Rosh Hashanah. Tonight, Rabbi Jeffrey Schistler will be talking to 6 of our members about what musical items they look forward to over the High Holydays, and each will select a recording of their choice.
Thank you very much, Spencer. Well, I'm delighted to welcome everybody again to what I'm sure you're going to find very enjoyable and also, I hope, a very interesting evening. You know, people who go to Shawl, have been going to Shawl for years and years since they were very small, learn to associate specific melodies or specific tunes with specific occasions. Now, those of us who know about Shawl music, which is, I suspect, most of you, otherwise you probably wouldn't have logged into this program, will know that there is what we call nusach. Nusach is the basic modes of davening. The simplest, not completely accurate, but the simplest way of understanding nusach is to think about the different melodies we use for repeating the Midah. That's probably the very simple, basic way. You know, on Shabbat and Yom Tov, we have a specific way of repeating the Midah. During the weekdays, a different melody. On Shalosh Regalim is a different one. And on the Yamim Noraim is another different melody. And these are what we call basic nusach. They're melodies, modes that have been handed down for centuries. There are also melodies that we have that we associate very strongly with a particular Yom Tov. For example, you can hardly imagine going to Shawl on Pesach and not hearing Adiru somewhere in the service. Or a Chanukah and not hearing da 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 dee da dum. Or on Shavuot and not hearing da 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 dee da dum. These are melodies, they're not strictly nusach, but they're melodies that I suspect are so strongly associated with those specific occasions, we'd probably think of them now as melodies, as nusach. Tonight, really, what we're going to hear is not melodies, not nusach. We're going to hear compositions. They're not specifically nusach, but they are things that are associated, or that our participants, the people who we're going to hear from, particularly associate with Yom Tov. They are things that these people look forward to hearing over Yom Tov. It's possible that they don't hear them anymore in Edgware, but they might do. But even if they don't, they have associated them with the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for years in the communities in which they've been brought up, in communities where they went for many years. We're going to start with our first guest, and I'm very pleased to welcome Alan Wiserose. Alan, are you with us? Where actually were you brought up as a youngster?
Well, I'm actually born and bred in Edgware, and I was brought up in Shawl, in Holydays Gardens. That was a federation Shawl, and actually it was founded by my uncle, Bernard. My father was the governor there for something like about 40 years. And around the Shawl, at that time, as a Shawl should be run, and they had proper decorum in the Shawls, and they had, they didn't actually wear top hats as you were speaking about earlier, but they had various cosmonic in the Shawl, a lot of laymen as well, something, which was very, very nice. So it was a good place to go about. You heard it all different Pazonim, some were good, some were not so good. And as I got older, then I went to the assurance, I went to the youth groups or whatever, and I sort of left, came away from the assurance to after my Balista, and came into the United in the youth services, and stayed there since.
Now, I remember the assurance many, many years ago. I can remember when Eliat was there. Do you remember who was Eliat's predecessor as cousin?
No, I don't. I do remember Eliat in particular. He was a great a great cousin. He wasn't a cousin by profession, he was an architect. And I think he spent most of the time, unfortunately, on his back. He had a lot of back trouble. But he was absolutely superb to listen to in the Shawl.
After Eliab, you had Shimon Kugel, if I'm not mistaken.
Shimon Kugel with the guitar. He used to play these Malovani there in the evening on the Shabbos, and he used to come along with his guitar. And he had another friend, I can't remember, also Shimon something or other, from Manchester, that used to come with him and play.
No, I remember you did have some good chazonim there. When you came to Edgware, when you first came to Edgware United, who was the chazan?
That time, Malovani. Malovani.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, that's quite some time back, the 70s. And he was absolutely superb as a chazan. He was absolutely wonderful, really, to listen to.
The piece you've chosen is Holydays is actually a kvartin piece.
That's right.
Can you tell us why you've chosen that piece?
I think that's a lovely piece. It wasn't as that generally solo in the Shawl. You have a lot of choir around. It kind of occurs during repetition on the Musaf, I think, in the sopranos section, or on the second section. And it is a lovely to listen to. It has a lovely Musaf to it. It's just a lovely piece of governing. You can sit back and you've got a good cousin singing it, and you just enjoy it.
Wonderful. We're going to hear Cantor William Wolfe singing Holydays by Kvartin.
ידי עבודך הנביאים עשו וכוסו ולאמור אמר השם מלך ישראל בגואלו השם צבאות אני ראשון ואני אחרון אני ראשון ואני אחרון ומבלעדי אין אלוקים ונאמר ועולו מושים בהר ציון ועולו מושים בהר ציון ועולו מושים בהר ציון משפוט שרי סוף לשפוט שרי סוף והוי סוף והוי סוף לשם המלוכו ונאמר והוי השם למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא השם אחד כל שמו אחד ובשורו סחו ובשורו Soros focos uvelemo. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad.
Our next guest is David Ruskin. Good evening, David. Good evening to you. Lovely to have you here with us. Now, were you brought up in Liverpool?
I was born and bred.
Right.
1955.
So which cousin did you have?
Well,
now, we're talking about Prince's Road, aren't we?
yeah, we are. Now, I was born at the end of 55, and one of the greatest chazanim we ever had retired in the middle of 1955. Unfortunately, I never heard him live. That was Herman Bornstein. And he was the chazan in Warsaw, and he was the chazan in Budapest, and had such a great reputation that when they knew he was going to sing on a Shabbat morning, they would queue around the block to get into the shul. And he made a few wonderful recordings, and that's all we have left. And he retired to the south of France, and when the money ran out, he came back to Manchester and joined the shul where Rabbi Norman Solomon was the Rav. Possibly Whitefield, I can't remember. And
Whitefield?
Was it Whitefield? Possibly. And my two very good friends of mine, his sons, Rabbi Solomon's sons, heard him sing, but he had passed his best by then. So I was brought up really under the guidance of Maurice Katanka.
How long was that? How long was Cousin Katanka at Liverpool?
Yeah, well, he joined at the middle of May 55, and sadly he passed away still as Chazan on Shabbos Yisro 1981. So about 26 years he was there. And he made a great impression on me, taught me how to daven and present services, and I understudied him for 20 odd years. I sang in the choir in the shul, and I used to sing along with the chazan rather than with the choir. And the choir master said to me after a while, so you're no good up here, you're singing with the chazan, you should be down there studying with the chazan. So I went downstairs and I listened to his every note and what have you, and learnt nusach from him and all the great pieces that they used to sing. He used to sing with the choir, and it was tremendous. We had a tremendous program on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Who was the choir master in your time?
Choir master was a man called Raphael Dorfman, who is a relation of Sandra Abrahams, who was a Dorfman.
Liverpool had a very famous choir master prior to that, didn't he? Saki was the choir master in Liverpool.
He was in the 1890s, yes, and we used a lot of his music in our repertoire, and it is now passed to many congregations across the world, and we still use his music today. Tremendous.
Well, there's really only one piece I think that most of us know from Saki, which we use, which is the Igdal.
That's right, and we used it for only on Sukkot and Shemini Atzeret, Simchat Torah. We had a different one for Pesach. We had the one for Shavuot, which we occasionally use in Edgway United when the chazan knows what he's doing, and we get the correct tune on the correct occasion, which sadly doesn't always happen. But Saki, other things that Saki composed with the Hallelu and the Hodu in the Rosh Chodesh Hallel. That was composed by him, and we use that today. But you'll very rarely hear it in any other shul. I have heard it sung in Bevis Marks, but on a Rosh Chodesh, but nowhere else. And when I sang it one morning in Edgware in the Hashkama, I had a few raised eyebrows as to what I was doing.
One of the interesting things about Liverpool, Princess Road Synagogue, is that it still has a mixed choir.
Yes, the mixed choir dated only from really the Second World War, because the male choristers were called up and they had to substitute the voices, and the women that were left behind substituted the male voices. So that's where it dates from.
It's quite a long time since Princess Road has had a chazan, hasn't it?
Oh, yes. Well, they've never replaced a chazan since Rev. Canticle. They've had somebody who used to sing in the choir who stepped in and was quite capable of presenting the services, and he's been the mainstay. But I think Princess Road, sadly, is falling apart at the seams, and things have moved on. As Liverpool, we really only have 1.5 shuls there, which is Shawl and Allison, which is very sad. The great shul, Greenbank Drive, where there was a tremendous chazan, Henry Chait, has closed down. But he was a tremendous chazan and could have been an opera singer. Herman Bornstein was an opera singer, actually, and used to stand in at the opera occasionally, so I'm told.
Now, the piece you've chosen, actually, is a choral piece.
Yes.
Tell us about it, and please, why have you chosen it?
Well, it's different. As you were talking about earlier, there are modes of music. We hear Shabbos mode 50-odd Shabbatot in the year. We have Yom Tov mode, where we may only hear it 12 to 14 times in the year, including a Shabbat Rosh Chodesh or a weekly Rosh Chodesh. So when you come to something like Horei Mashe Yomru, where you only sing it 3 times a year, it is very special. It's in a totally different mode. And when you hear it, it's very uplifting. And there are many pieces I could have chosen, but I chose this one. It is just a very beautiful piece of music. The pieces we used to sing, for example, Melech Elyon by Mombach. We only sing it one day. We only sing it on the first day of Rosh Hashanah in the Musaf. And so I remember coming into shul, first day Rosh Hashanah, I must have been about 7, and I heard this piece of music, Melech Elyon, and then I came into shul the following year, and I heard it again. And I said, I remember that from last year. And it's only by repeating year after year these special pieces that they make a mark on you. Horei Ma was another one. I've only ever heard it sung a couple of times in Edgware United, and that was by cousin Johnny Turtle. And when he sang it, I thought, oh, it's made my Yontif for me. And I sang along with him. I was the only one singing along. But it made my Yontif because it...
Well, Horei is, of course, in the Blue Book.
It's in the... Yeah, and I was brought up on music in our household. And by music, I get closer to the Almighty. It's a very special thing. And when you hear good chazanut or good music from a choir and chazan together, I find it very uplifting. I might not understand all the words, but the music brings me closer to the Almighty. And that's why I like listening to it.
Lovely. Then let's hear Horei. Lovely. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Now let's welcome Sylvia Hammond. Good evening, Sylvia. Are you with us?
Yes,
Yeah, excellent. Right. Now, Sylvia, do you like chazanot?
sometimes.
So, depending on?
Who's davening, how they're davening, where they're davening, when they're davening.
Okay, so what defines a good chazan for you?
My earliest memory of Chazanut is as a very small child, and why it's probably made such a deep impression on me is because as a very small child, the very first adventure I had at night was going to Kindle Shawl for Kol Nidre, which was a big thing for a little girl, right? Obviously I went with my parents. And the chazan there was Avram Rosenfeld, who at the time was not yet Rabbi Rosenfeld, he was the chazan. And the shul at that time was very small. The hall that is now the hall was the actual shul, and then what they used to do on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is they used to hire a cinema, the Odeon Temple Fortune, on the top of the hill, which no longer exists. And they filled that up completely, and the rabbi and the chazan, the rabbi was Rabbi Gelis, and the rabbi and the chazan and the choir were all presented on the stage, and they used to daven from there. And it made a very, very deep impression, apart from the fact that Avram Rosenfeld had the most wonderful voice. Now, it may be that I'm biased, because that's the voice I heard as a small child, and that's the voice that carried me through all of my childhood until I got married. So it may be that I have a bias about him, but he had a very special, special voice that I've never heard again since. That is why I have chosen Kol Nidre as my chosen song, Yom Tov song, because that was the first thing I ever heard at night, and it was very special. Can you imagine a little girl going to shul with her parents late at night and hearing all this liturgical music that she'd never heard before? And it had a very deep impression on me. Nowadays it makes me cry. Made me cry for years. It is very emotive, and if it's done nicely by the right person, it should bring up inside a person all the emotions that young people should bring.
Do you ever listen to chazanot?
Occasionally.
Which chazanim do you like?
We've got Kuzovitsky, haven't we? Yeah.
Are there any chazanim that are around today, who are singing today, you've heard that you like?
Well, I like Chelsea very much.
Okay, good.
And
Very fine, Chaz.
Lemma, yeah, I like him. He's got a certain bounce about him, which is lovely. Other than that, I think it's quite limited.
You've chosen Colnidre.
Yes. I don't suppose you've got Alvin Roosevelt, have you?
I don't know if there is a recording of Avram Roosevelt singing it, is there? I actually found a recording, I've listened to lots of them, but I found one that I feel is very beautiful by Chazan. Unfortunately, his name is not mentioned, but it's with a choir, and I think it's a very beautiful recording. So thank you, Sylvia, very much for that. Let's listen to this Colnidre.
Kol nidrei vesarei vaharamei vekonamei vekinuyei vekinosei ushevoi Dine darema Mio Kippur
Now we move on to our friend Ruth Walter.
That's better. Hi. Now, Ruth, you of course know a little bit. Yes, David, can you mute, please? Ruth, you know a little bit about Shawl music since you were married to a choir master.
I was married to a choir master, but I was also in a mixed choir, North London Synagogue. And our choir master at that time was the late Manny Carter. And I must say that singing in a mixed choir taught me how to follow a service in Shawl, which was a really good lesson. It was a very good choir, not because I was in it, but we did have some very good choristers. And our cousin was, his name was Cousin Slavinsky. And also, next door to our school in Poets Road, they had Jack Sherman, who was very musical. And I learned a lot, and I found that the music over the Yom Noraim was extremely emotive. I don't know which pieces you're going to play, but they all had a very special place for me. And as you know, Gerald was extremely musical. And he sang under Jacob Malovani, and also...
Jacob Malovani.
Sorry, Jacob Kusavitsky. Jacob Kusavitsky and Malovani. And we had Billy Copperman, who came from Ireland. He was a very good cousin too. So,
When you married Gerald, was he a choir master already?
no, he was a chorister.
And I remember singing with Gerald in Palmer's Green.
Yes.
Because how long was he the choir master in Palmer's Green?
He took over at Palmer's Green when we were married from 1958.
You've chosen Lewandowski's Zachartiloch.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
Why have you chosen that?
Because I just found it very moving and very musical, and I just enjoyed it.
Well, we're going to hear, I think, a very beautiful rendition from the Moscow Shawl Choir, singing Lewandowski's Zachartiloch.
Thank you.
Before we go on to our next guest, let me just tell you I've been sent a message from my friend David's son that the chazan we heard singing Kol Nidre is Udi Spielman. Okay, now let's come to Simon Gaffney. Good evening, Simon.
Good evening.
Hi, lovely to see you. Now, Simon, where were you actually brought up?
All over the place. Get ready.
Where were you born? Let's start there.
I was born in Manchester, in fact, Stockport. Lived there for a few years. Then went to Birmingham, and where I went to Cheder, Pershore Road, and went to King David's School. And then we went to Leicester. We were there for many, many years. And then eventually, with gravity coming down the country, we ended up in Edgware.
Who's the first cousin you remember?
My first cousin in Park Road Shawl in Birmingham. There was a lovely cousin. I just can't remember his name, but he was just fantastic. And also, what I remember, I know it's nothing to do with Chazonim, but the shofar blowing on Rosh Hashanah, he gave just such a wonderful feeling. And also, I don't know, it was a small shawl, and I do remember my brother at my older brother's bar mitzvah chucking cars down on the people below. That was quite fun. It was a very nice time. We weren't religious. We were 3 times a year Jews in those days, like many people. So I come from a very different background to all the speakers this evening. I came to choirs and chazanim much later than everybody else, which is interesting, isn't it? Because I really appreciate it. And the story goes like this. When I came to Edgware, we lived on Marlborough Avenue, just around the corner. So we thought, well, let's go to this shul, and I found my way in and all the rest of it. And there was a nice man called Mike downstairs who greeted me. This is Mike Potashnik. I wasn't sure at the time. And he says, "Oh, do you want to sing in the choir?" And the choir was upstairs in the choir loft. Do you remember those days? And I had sung a little bit in Leicester with Chaim Ingram, if you remember Chaim Ingram, a lovely voice. In fact, he studied music at Hull, and he had actually a marvellous voice. And we did sing some pieces, including Horaim, which is on one of David's pieces. We sung that as one of our pieces. So I went upstairs and pretended to know the notes and sang along a bit, and that's how I got started. Originally, I was a bass, because I thought I had a deep voice, and then Hilton, who was the choir master, said, "Nah, I think you should try it for baritone." So I did the baritone parts there. And I think you would agree, and most people would agree with, when you're singing or you're in a concert and you hear the harmonies, it goes through your soul. It's marvellous. It really is uplifting. So that's how I came to start singing in the choir and listening to chazonim as well.
Do you like hard chazonas?
Yeah, well, okay. With a proviso, they need to do the twiddly bits as long as they end up back on the correct note. I don't mind that. But when they lose it, then that's not so easy to follow, to be honest. But yeah, listen, somebody's got a voice and is performing. It's really, really nice.
Do you have a favourite chazan?
I sang with Yopti a lot. I sang with Steve Robbins when I first came. In fact, Steve Robbins, he took the choir to his house and he taught us all the pieces when I was first in Edgware. So that was sort of my introduction. and he had a very sweet voice, and the choir sang very nicely with him, and we had the recordings to work from, so that was nice. I tell you, my favourite chazan I've heard is Hirschdick, and my mother, Oliver Shom, she invited us to Yerushalayim, and opposite the hotel was a great synagogue. Apart from the fact it has fantastic stained glass windows, which just unbelievable, and a choir master who conducts with his back to the choir like flying, because he's looking forward and they're behind him. You could hear every single articulation of that chazan, because the voice just carried around the whole building, and it was just beautiful. He really took it to another height, and the bass section in that choir was unbelievable, reverberant. It was just fantastic. So I also sang with Hirschdick when he came back to Edgware, and we sang, I think we sang some of your pieces, Jeffrey, and Colin Dworkin. We sang at the Yeshurun, and that, I think he was brought in for a bar mitzvah. So that was a big pleasure. Yeah.
Do you have any views on singing popular music in shul, of adapting opera or Broadway melodies to?
You mean like O Sole Mio or whatever, that sort of thing? Yeah. I love it, quite frankly. I think, okay, I heard a rabbi say that, you know, a lot of music comes from Hashem. It's something special about it. So why not use it in any way you can? And if it's a great tune and it's befitting of the particular, I don't think you should belittle a piece by singing a nursery rhyme or something. I mean, if it's a proper song and the person can sing the music and bring the shul to life, and you know, I've seen people swaying in the aisles and big smiles on their faces when you get this wonderful tunes coming from their house. It's good.
Okay, well, I'm not going to debate the issue with you. I'm just interested in your view. Now, you've chosen a Malovani piece. Well, it's not Malovani's composition, of course, but you've chosen a piece that Malovani, I think it's fair to say, probably popularised, the Takab Shofar Gadol. Why have you chosen that?
It's the most brilliant piece. It's central to Rosh Hashanah. Right from the beginning, the takar, you can hear the shofar blowing just from the words. It's onomatopoeic. It's absolutely brilliant. And I looked this up, and it's Reveille, which is where people blow the bugle to get the soldiers up in the morning. This is the Reveille of our Rosh Hashanah Ba'ayir, and it awakens people, and it has such impact when you start the piece. And and obviously it eventually, and also has different movements. It's like a piece of Beethoven with 3 or 4 movements and different. You might think they're different pieces really, because they really are different. And it evolves into obviously the shofar blowing afterwards, which is absolutely central to Rosh Hashanah. And I just love the piece. Obviously I sing it, and if I wasn't singing, I'd love to hear it as well. I wish I'd have heard Malovani. I did meet him in New York, but obviously he wasn't, you know, singing this piece at the time. So I just think it's got bounce, it's got character, it's got colour, it's got variation, it's got the boy solos piece, and also the one main thing is the Shomea. Everybody knows that tune, and they all join in. So I think it's just evocative of the whole Rosh Hashanah for me.
Lovely. Well, let's hear it. Thank you very much. Let's hear Malovani singing Ravitz's Takab Shofar Gadol.
Elokeinu v'Elokei avoseinu. far gadol, Ilehei Yeruseinu. Vesanes lekaret, Gallu Zoreinu midein agoim onefutzosenu kahanes miyakesei haaretz V'avienu lezion irecha berlino v'Yerushalayim beis mikdoshecho b'simecha Sham nas lefanecho eskovenos choseinu ki metzovaleinu vesasecho Baili de Moshe havedecho mi pichevadecho mi pichevadecho Yom simchasem uvemoateichem uverashei chodesheichem uskatem b'chatzotzos alolosechem veyale zivechem shalemechem uveyom simchasem לפני אלוקיכם אני השם אלוקיכם Hashem.
Right, now we come to our last guest, but as they say, Achron Chaviv, and we welcome Sandy Potashnik. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, thank you.
Right, okay, now Sandy, where were you? You actually think you were brought up in Wembley, weren't you?
I was brought up in Wembley. Chazan Meyerlev was the first Chazan I ever remember, who then went to Monk's afterwards, who I believe was not appreciated as much in Monk's because he was never allowed to repeat anything there. And then came Steve Robbins, and we had Steve Robbins for many years in Wembley. And I think he followed us when we moved to Edgware, because a few years after I moved to Edgware, he came to Edgware. But my first memories of Chazanot are definitely from Wembley. Funny thing is that my father was completely tone deaf, couldn't sing a note, but he loved music. He loved listening to music. He loved Chazanos. And I remember him bringing us, I was probably a teenager, I suppose. We came to Edgware to hear Malovani sing in a Slichas service. We all came together. I don't remember what year it was, but it was well before I moved to Edgware. So my father really appreciated music, although he couldn't sing a note. And my brother became very interested in music and choirs and chazonim after that. We had a choir in Wembley all the years. And then when I met Mike, he was into choirs in a big way. So actually the year before we were married, and he lived in Wembley for a while, he came and sang in the Wembley choir, joined the Wembley choir. And then we moved to Edgware. And I think the first cousin in Edgware was Zev Torren when I came. We missed Malovani, he was gone already. Zev Torren. We had a few chazonim, but then Steve Robbins came. He was with us for quite a long time. I think they were good years in Wembley, in Edgware, and Steve was there. Then we had Shimon, who was very, very popular for a few years. Johnny Turgle, again, very popular. I think I'm probably going to be different from all the other people that you've interviewed tonight, because I like the more modern cousin, as you well know, Jeffrey. We've debated this many times. I appreciate the in inverted commas old-fashioned chazonim, but I prefer to listen to them in a concert now than to listen to them in shul, and I prefer the more modern approach. That's my background.
I asked Simon a moment ago about using melodies from Broadway and from opera and so on for in shul. What do you think of that? I'm okay with it. I mean, occasionally they grate because you just think that tune shouldn't be in shul or doesn't go with a piece of music. I think you have to be careful what you choose. But generally, I'm okay with it. We used to hear the tunes from Joseph quite often in I think Shimon used to do that quite often in Kedusha. I'm okay with that. I think today people don't want to listen to
long schlepped out chazonas anymore in shul. They may want to listen to it in a concert situation, but not in shul. And I think I personally like to listen to music that I can join in with. So I'm okay with that. I don't mind it, as long as it's not inappropriate. And as long as the person can sing and has, got a good voice, I'm okay with that.
What's your view on professionally trained chazonim? Do you think it's necessary to be trained properly? Or do you think that anybody who can sing can stand up there and sing whatever they like as long as it's nice?
No, I think they do. I think they should be. They should be trained. They should be musicians, proper musicians, not just anybody that can just come up and sing a song. I think they need to be musicians, and I think they should have some training in chazonas. I'm not such a traditionalist that I think it's absolutely essential that they sing the right yigdal at the right time. That kind of thing doesn't bother me. I do want to hear the Rosh Hashanah tunes on Rosh Hashanah.
You've just contradicted yourself.
I know, but I'm not bothered if on Shavuos somebody sings the yigdal that you say comes from Pesach, because I probably wouldn't know the difference. If it's a nice tune, I don't mind. But when I come to shul on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I want to hear the traditional tunes that I've always heard ever since I was a child. That I do want to hear.
But you're being self-contradictory with respect.
I think some of the tunes, especially the tunes from the Blue Book, are very prescribed. Certain tunes for certain weeks or certain, and I'm not that fussed about those tunes. But at a Yom Tov, at a Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, I want to hear those traditional tunes. But that's not to say that I'm happy. I don't mind if a chazan introduces new tunes. We've got used to new tunes over the years, and we learn the first time we hear them, the second time we hear them, it takes a bit of getting used to. But once we get used to them, we incorporate them into our regular services, and we get used to them and we join in. Today, I think it's about people being able to join in. I don't think people want to sit and listen to a chazan singing a concert anymore, that people want to be able to join in. So I'm happy if the chazan sings maybe one piece that's the real chazonas piece, and then the rest I want us to be able to join in.
But you are aware that you've said that you think people don't want, but there are people who do want.
Yeah.
You don't want, but there are people who do want.
Look, we talk to people in shul. Some people still want, and that's fine. We can have a mixture. But I think a lot of younger people are put off by listening to lots of chazonas on a Shabbos, at a Shabbos service. That's what we have found talking to people. A lot of the younger people don't want to hear chazonas. I would be very happy to go to a concert, chazonas concert, and sit there and listen for 2 or 3 hours. We used to go every year to Hamster suburb to the concerts there, and I would be very, very happy to sit there and listen to that for 3 hours. But when I'm in shul, I like to be able to join in. I still want to hear a chazan with a good voice, and in answer to your question, yes, somebody who's trained.
Okay, well, tell us why you've chosen the piece that you have, because I think what you've just been saying reflects very well the words you've just been saying.
So I have chosen something very, very different from what everybody else has chosen. I would just like to add, before I say why I've chosen that, I find the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services very, very emotive and very moving, particularly find Ne'ilah. When I listen to the Ne'ilah service, I do find that very moving. And there are lots of pieces I could have chosen today, but I've chosen something which is completely different.
What have you chosen?
It's Murray Cohen, which some of my friends will know that that's my upbeat piece on Yom Kippur. The reason I chose it, Simon's laughing because they sing it. When the choir sings it, they all look up at me and laugh. The reason I chose it is because it appears in the repetition of the Musaf Hamida halfway through the day on Yom Kippur, usually about 2:30, 3 o'clock, when you're really tired, hungry, falling asleep. There's a long way to go before the end of the day. It's a very
low kind of time in the day. And it's a very, very upbeat piece for Yom Kippur. And it gets everybody singing, and it's just a bit of fun. I don't know that it's necessarily my favourite piece, but I'm very fond of it. At the same time, I do find the more solemn and serious pieces very emotional as well. But this, I just find it kind of just lifts the solemnity of the day a little bit, and lifts me a bit when perhaps I'm feeling a bit low in the middle of the day. So that's why I chose it.
Well, that's why I chose you to finish our program, because we'll all go away hopefully with a big smile on our faces. We have here the London School of Jewish Song, which is a children's choir, which is beautiful. I'm sure you will agree, singing for us Murray Cohen. Thank you very much, Sandy, for that. That was Lovely. It's a beautiful piece by Yigal Salik. Let me finish by thanking very much Alan Wiseau, David Ruskin, Sylvia Hammond, Ruth Walter, Simon Gaffney, and Sandy Potashnik for participating this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the program. We want to give a very special thanks to, as usual, Tony Honigberg, without whose help this would be impossible, and to Elliot Gollum for organising the Zoom. And I suspect that to finish, Spencer will want to say a few words. But good night and thank you very much, everybody.
Right. Well, I too would like to thank our 6 participants for their contributions this evening and hope that it stimulated your interest in Yom Noraim music. And thanks also to Rabbi Shisler for chairing this session. I wish you all L'Shana Tova Tikotevul V'Tifapemu, a good year, and may you be inscribed and sealed for blessing in the Book of Life.